But I want to try and just to point out a couple of three areas now in the remaining hour and a half where we may want to actually give more time as a collective group. They seem to me to be fairly key areas in relationship to some of the discussions we've had. And so what I will be doing is just sort of this afternoon just exposing the issues rather than dealing with them in any detail. And I just want to talk just for 10 minutes or so about teaching and learning. And I know we've already done some of this in previous sessions, so I'm not going to go over that ground, but I think it's important to highlight. There's just a couple of points I want to highlight, if I may. Leave that. Just to say that, all of the evidence, we've just finished, I think I've alluded to it on previous occasions, but we've just finished a fairly major research project on leadership and the relationship between leadership and student achievement. And it really has served to emphasize, I think, the veracity of this slide here, that really there's a sort of, some of the key skills and the key sort of emphases of leadership is in these areas here, and we've talked a lot about that this morning. I'll just talk a bit more about that later on. But I think for me that managing teaching and learning is something that we in a sense can't do enough of, and certainly my worry in England, as I said to you before, is that our vocabulary, our words about teaching aren't sharp enough. Now, in a sense, we've got a big opportunity here in Victoria because, Bruce, I think it's, when is the 5Es document finally going to be published? The end of March. Okay, well, okay. Because, I remember we did some sessions on that, a year ago, in May of last year. And in a sense, the 5Es framework will allow us, or at least give us the opportunity to have a more focused discussion about developing a vocabulary around teaching and learning. And it seems to me that is a opportunity we should grasp, and we should, once we see the framework and we're not sort of in the dark as we were last May, take that as an opportunity to actually have some substantive discussions. And for me, a couple of the key points here are, one is, are we able to link effectively curriculum to teaching and learning strategies and to assessment for learning? When I was doing some of the sessions with some of your colleagues last year, at some point there was actually quite a bit of honesty when people said, well, actually, it's this or the textbook that actually drives classroom practice rather than the integration of this together. And I'm not obviously arguing against curriculum content in the sense, I think the value to be added here is how we integrate the curriculum content with a variety of teaching and learning strategies and assessment for learning. I think that's where we can, get more added value, more benefit. And that's just I borrowed that from Bruce yesterday, just to say that this is what we need to be looking at. What is good about the framework as I see it in this sort of draft is that these capabilities are behavioral, right? So they do allow a process of description. They do allow a process of observation, so that's really good. But for me, it's, as I've said again to you before, it is about a richer view of what classroom practice is, and my own hasn't changed. I believe that learning experiences are composed of content, process, and social climate. The curriculum content, what we teach, the process, how we teach, and by the kind of place we are as schools. And I think that that notion of how a school teaches and those three ways in which a school teach need to be the sort of the continual focus of the sort of the discussions and the professional debate inside our schools. And I also believe that this framework, which I've shared with you before, is one that fits well into the 5Es approach. And for me, it's, have we got the basic building blocks of teaching right in the school? Is there a high degree of consistency in terms of how we deal with low-level disruption, about how we sort of organise the class for teaching, and so on and so on and so forth? And in a sense, you have to start here before you go into these other areas. Do we have a sort of a clear view of what high-quality relationships are like inside our school? Do we have a clear debate about how we set expectations and what do expectations look like in various departments of the school? Because that is very, very powerful in terms of setting a culture for learning inside the school.